We do not. The mascot, the team uniforms, the hats, all that sort of stuff. Before we could do any of that, which is all about again licensing through minor league baseball, we had to get all of this approved. So we are in a position where within the last 10 days this has all been approved, and now we're going to get to work on applying that to things. I think our goal is certainly uniform wise and maybe mascot wise as well. At some point in the next, say, 6 to 8 weeks, to have prototypes of those things, and we will at that point also have a public unveiling of all that sort of stuff. But we want to our business is a seasonal business. Everything we do starting right around October 1 is really looking toward next season. So as we started to do that, and as the park downtown continues to come along, we just felt that it was important, as soon as we had the full approvals, to come out and start work for 2009 with the team's new identity.
Yes. So are the logos going to be on a new baseball team too?
They will, with the uniforms that we're developing, that hopefully we'll have in the next month or two, that we can show off and get out there in the community. Exactly right. All the uniforms will reflect this and the new brand and everything. So we're very excited to continue to develop those.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Questions?
What were the other 6 or so names you were considering along with TinCaps that you mentioned?
Sure.
First, great question, Nick. First, I wanted to hit maybe some of the ones that were very, suggested a lot, highest numbers. Somebody else asked that. Hey, will you let us know some of the other ones that were highly suggested? We got a lot, hundreds, with generals, which has been done by a minor league affiliated team before. So that posed some challenges. It didn't fit in the unique category. There was a lot with, river this. I think I told you one time, I think any animal that was on Noah's Ark we received with river in front of it. And so, even in our own league with the River Bandits and, so many of the other teams, that one really wasn't in play. And then
right. We
the
had
Kikiangas, I think that should be mentioned. That was suggested a lot by a lot of people, and with respect to that, we just didn't proceed with that. Again, very respectful of everybody and that sort of thing. Those in numbers wise, I'll hit that, and then Jason can tell you the other ones that were in there towards the end. Numbers wise, those were 3 of the strongest, and we wanted to bring those out because they're all great ideas, but they didn't hit all the criteria that we were looking for.
Yeah, as Mike said, we, with this enormous list, I guess we had our 3 criteria. Use that as a way to narrow things down. One way we were able to get rid of a lot of names is you do a quick trademark search and see that whether there's a professional team someplace already named that, or whether you see that there are, when you type it into Google, there are 50 high school teams with that name. Anything like that, we just quickly ruled out. Some of them would have made great names in some respect, but wouldn't have met our goal of trying to have a unique identity, have one that really could be just ours. In terms of the names that got a lot of thought from us, we, as we went through sort of those themes, we had at least one name within each of the themes that we had liked. Within the apple theme, we actually had quite a few names that had gotten some play within that were apple cedars, crab apples. In each instance, though, we didn't feel that name related as directly to the Johnny Appleseed theme as opposed to, say, apples in general. In terms of other names, along, for instance, the innovation theme, one name that we considered for quite a while and did some work developing was Octane. The gas pump having been invented here in Fort Wayne, we thought that was that had a lot of potential. Eventually, with that one, we ended up preferring the Apple theme to that for a couple of reasons. One is, there's a heightened sensitivity to anything having to do with gas or petroleum these days. We weren't quite sure we wanted to wade into that thicket. And to boot, as we started to look at what it would do around the ballpark, for instance, Everything that any logo designer or brand expert you came up with, anything that they were doing that came from Octane had black, red, orange, and we sort of thought if we're going to have a bunch of signage and logos around this ballpark that are black, red, and orange, it's really not going to blend into the park theme the way we would like. Other names. We looked, yeah, we did look, one of the things we tried to do was go back, one of the very first things we did is look at every name that we could find that had ever been on a team in Fort Wayne. One that we thought was really cool and sort of went along with this innovation theme a little bit as well was Voltman, which was the name of the General Electric team here several decades ago now. We looked at that, and there obviously would have been some complications in reviving an old name, but one of the things that played in as well at that point is as we were going through this process, there were announcements in the paper that General Electric may be looking to sell off the unit that was here. So again, it didn't seem to us to necessarily be at that point the best tie-in. Yeah, right. Along the Octane theme, we also looked at, for a lot of these, there were close variations. Along with Octane, we also looked at Fuel. Problem you run into, both Octane and Fuel also happen to be the name of apparently somewhat significant rock bands that had trademarks on certain aspects. There was with Octane, there was a baseball bat company that has a line of bats called the Octane, which may have been a trademark issue. So there were a whole range of considerations and complications that came in as we tried to narrow this list down. Along the more historical names, at one point we looked at clankers, which was something we found in the history books about how they sort of first established before anybody had paved roads. One of the ways they established early concepts was, early commerce was laying down wood planks around the area, which was much more important here than it would have been in areas that are not basically in a large floodplain. Those are some of the ones off the top of my head. But we had 2,500 names, and we thought about a lot of them. I mean, there were a few people within our group, and there were a lot of suggestions for things like the floods, the sandbaggers. Again, some of these names we thought about for quite a while, and as we lived with them, we started to say that might not be the right way to go. So, for instance, while you could have had a lot of fun on some levels with the flood theme, while we were considering this, there were massive floods, just a couple hours to the west, and people didn't seem to be having a whole lot of fun with that. So, we thought it'd be a little incongruous to decide to name our team the Floods at the same time as we and the entire Midwest League was raising a fund to donate money to the flood victims, in Quad Cities and places like that where people in some of our communities were ravaged by these. So. It was a long process, and part of the reason it was a long process is a lot of the names that sounded really good for about 5 minutes or maybe 5 days. The more we lived with them, the more we said that's not the identity that we want, or that doesn't fit well with what we're trying to do.